Thank you for that intro, Shabam. And hey, everyone. We're here from Notion to talk about how we built Notion and what the building blocks in Notion are. So really quickly, some intros. My name is Aman. I'm a product manager at Notion on the API and platform team.
My name's Lauren. I'm a software engineer also on the platform team.
And we'll start with a really basic slash simple-ish question, which is, what is Notion? And on my way here on my flight, I Googled what Notion is to kind of crowdsource my answer here to see if people thought about it, how people described it. And on Google, you get knowledge base, you get project management, you get next-gen document editor, you get relational databases for the masses, and you get a ton of images like this, which is people sharing their Notion setups. People saying, hey, I built a home page for my company, I built this habit tracker, I built this document editing thing for my class to take notes in college. And that's how people describe Notion. It's their use case for Notion. It's what they're doing with the product. But we think about it a little bit differently. We look at Notion as digital pen and paper. And I'm really glad that Fabian made this remark about steam engines and this old-time technology, because we look at it very similarly, where when you have a pen and paper, you don't go, this is my tool for writing essays, or this is my next-gen charting tool. They're just two tools you have that you use to solve your problems every day. And similarly, we kind of believe Notion is fundamentally a tool-making company. We're in the business of making this tool that you can then shape to solve your need, which are the use cases we see on Google or on the internet today. And there's this quote by this philosopher, Marshall McLuhan, who's this Canadian philosopher who did a lot of media studies back in late 1900s. And we think about this quote a lot when we think about Notion, which is we shape our tools and thereafter our tools shape us. And the crux of this paper that he wrote is that the tools that you use every day should be shaped by you, and the way that they operate will change how you do your own job. And I think everyone here agrees that software is one of the greatest advents in the last 30 years. The power of software is unbridled. It's great. And I think a callback to Fabian's talk as well, if software is a medium like reading and writing, the world is pretty illiterate today. People can't really code in the masses, and companies are kind of forced to stitch together all these tools to meet their needs. With Notion, what we're looking at now is, okay, you have this software tool. Can you shape it yourself? Can people that don't know how to write code, can everybody shape software that fits their own needs? And then their tools can shape the way that they're doing work. So it's almost like with software, we have pens and papers that are behind a combination lock, and very few people have the code to open that. And that kind of goes to our mission. So our mission at Notion is to make software tool-making ubiquitous. And it's why we call ourselves a tool-making company. We want everyone everywhere to feel empowered to customize software that they need and use it for their exact needs. And the idea here is that without knowing how to code, can you take a CRM tool and change it to meet your needs? Can you take a HRIS system out of the box and then edit it for your own company's needs? And we began in the wiki space. So can you take a wiki product and make it work for your own company? And that was our advent into no code, is how do you edit software without having to write code? And I'm gonna hand it over to Lauren to talk about how we did that.
Thank you. So as mentioned, also Shubham took my talk. Everything is a block. But Notion is recognized as a no-code tool, and part of that is because of this block model inside of the product. And so when you first open Notion, you'll probably create a page and write some text. And by doing that, you've created two blocks. Every page is a block, and every paragraph of text is also a block. Here's kind of an example with an image block, some text, a toggle block, embed blocks, video blocks, and then databases, which each row inside of a database is also a block. And because Notion breaks down traditional documents into these granular block components, you can drag and drop them and use keyboard shortcuts to rearrange, reorder, and then reshape your thoughts. So that is our quick crash course on blocks. We'll go a little deeper soon, but so we've grown a ton since I first joined Notion. We have 20 million users who've created blocks. How many blocks do you think we have in our databases? 1 billion. 10 billion. I'll give you a quick hint. As of October 2021, so over a year ago, we had 50 billion. How many do you think we have? We have over 100 billion blocks, also known as blonks locally in our Slack. But this is like, these are the lifeblood, these are the essentials. Everything is a block. And so users are using them to create all different cool things we've never even imagined that they could create. So I know there's some developers here. You might be familiar with this book, and it might be painful to look at, and I apologize for that. But Notion aims to replicate powerful computing concepts using the block model to enable users to create and shape their workspaces to meet their needs. So we're going to revisit some of these data structures through the lens of Notion and blocks. Okay, so data concepts. So we love types at Notion, and we use TypeScript too. So each block have types. And without changing anything about a block, the type tells us how to render it, how to use it, and how users can interact with it. And so in this example, I have a toggle block, and the toggle block has kind of a header, and then it has some blocks inside of it as content. You can open it and turn it into something else. So in this case, we could try to turn this toggle block with content inside of it into a page. And voila, the toggle content is preserved, becomes a page where its title was previously the toggle header, and the content inside is just the page content now. So the next concept we want to highlight are pointers. So to a normal Notion user, this is just pasting a link to a page and another page. You can type the @ symbol, and you can mention pages or users. And in doing so, you create pointers or links, which, we're users of the internet for a while now. Links are extremely useful. We know how to use them. But also what's even more powerful is in Notion, we create a back pointer as well, what we call backlinks. So if you mention a page, you can go to that mentioned page and look at everywhere else it's mentioned to create kind of this like web inside of Notion. We also have tree structures in Notion. Most users maybe don't think about what a tree is, but when they create a new block inside of an existing one, they're expanding their workspace's tree structure. So blocks have children, and those blocks can also have children. So not all block types support children, but most do. So obvious examples are pages, toggles, and nested lists. And so when you drag and drop blocks into another block, you're reparenting them. So even databases are blocks, as hinted earlier, and you can drag them into a page and create a nested database inside your page. And then parentage kind of clicks with users, especially when they realize, oh, a page is a block, and it's inside my database, and that page can have other blocks. I can create other databases inside this page and keep nesting. So then we're like low-key teaching people recursion. And then we launched databases as a concept in 2018, which we kind of rebranded as Notion 2.0. And so, properties and types were introduced to give structures to blocks as rows. And what's cool about our collections and our databases is that you don't have to have a SQL knowledge to know how to query it, filter it, sort it, and group it. And so you're able to create different views of the exact same data using different layouts, filters, sorts. And then using that same pointer concept, you can then mention a database somewhere else and create like custom views of those. So it's like a pointer with a filter view. So in this example, I have some roadmap, and I've created 2 linked views so we can see like people's side-by-side tasks of the same view, just different views. The next concept we introduced with databases is relations, or what software engineers know as joins tables. So in this example, I have a database of customers, and maybe I want to relate those with the items that they've purchased. So I create a relation between them, and now I can see, oh, okay, these are the customers, and this is the items that they've bought. And now we can take this one step further. What if we want to subquery our joins table? And now users can do this with rollups, which are like these aggregation subqueries. So this example, I have these items that users have purchased, but each of those items has, in the other table, prices. So we can use a rollup to then look at the related item, look at its price, and sum it. So you don't need to know a join subquery to do this. We also introduced another block type called a synced block. It's not uncommon for users who just want to collect information, group them together, and reference them in multiple places. So sync blocks act as global variables. Adding them in one place then persists across the many different places that they're referenced. And we've seen some pretty cool use cases for sync blocks, like creating persistent navigation bars across different workspace pages. And finally, I want to talk about kind of a cool version of classes that we have within Notion. So with database properties and types, users want to codify like exactly the type of pages that can be created in the database. So this can be accomplished as templates, which we like to think of as instantiating a special class. So within a database, maybe I have a specific way I want to create bug reports, and I want them to always be P1s, and I want them to fill out all of the reproduction steps in a very particular way. So you can create these custom class interfaces via templates and allow them to instantiate these database rows with the same properties and content every time. So let's review. Everything's our blocks, they've always have been. Remember, we mentioned our mission was, we wanted to make toolmaking ubiquitous. And then I just spent the last 10 minutes talking about blocks. So what we're hinting at is that blocks together become greater than the sum of their parts. And this is best exemplified by the ability to publish pages and databases as templates. So we have a template gallery, which allows users to publish and duplicate templates from our arsenal of, that we published ourselves as Notion, but also from Notion creators. So if you wanted, to see inspiration, someone's habit tracker, someone's project management board, maybe a CRM tool, finance tools, marketing dashboards, you can peruse these templates and, distribute your own templates on the gallery. And this is kind of, in essence, users' ability to, take something that maybe they don't fully understand yet, take someone else's example, duplicate it into their workspace, and then remix it on their own. This is kind of their own version of like forking a repository, making your changes. That said, we can't build every single building block that we need to fit every user's unique needs. And that's where the API that we built comes in. So I'm going to pass it off to Aman to illustrate how we can extend Notion's capabilities with our APIs.
Cool. Thanks, Lauren. So there's a giant sign here that says API Days right behind me. So let's talk about the Notion API. We have an API. And I think when we launched the API, we got a bunch of questions that were like, hey, you're a no-code tool. Why do you have a public API? And why are you pushing people to build on this thing? Like, who do you care about? Developers or people that are using your blocks to build templates and build tools? So here's how we generally think about the public API in this no-code space. As Lauren mentioned, we have a ton of blocks. Text blocks, databases, toggles. We have some like lists, checklists. And people want to bring data into those blocks, but not always from Notion. They don't want to write that data themselves. It's stored somewhere else. So the public API's first foray was allowing people to connect Notion with information on other tools. So how do you bring data into the blocks in Notion and then use Notion's capabilities to take that data and format it in a way that makes sense to you? And then similarly, once data is in Notion, how do you manipulate it? What if you want to manipulate hundreds of pages at once? The API let you do that at the very beginning. And we've seen some really cool use cases come out of the public API. We've seen a number of no-code tools integrate with Notion, allowing you to bring data into Notion from all your different apps. For example, Typeform lets you bring in form responses into a Notion database. But at the same time, the block model is a little restrictive. A text block is a text block is a text block. And how do you take data from a source like Jira per se and put that into a text block? A little bit difficult. So we went on this adventure and we launched this product called Link Previews, which let you take data that lives somewhere else, like Jira for example, and build a custom block just for Jira. And now this is the Jira block that has information that's relevant to that app. So for example, here you have the name of the ticket, you have the status of the ticket, and when it was last updated. And similarly, today on Notion, we have blocks for GitHub, for Slack, for Asana, that are kind of melded to that specific use case. And then you take this one step further, you go, okay, Jira tasks don't live in a silo. They live in almost like a database-like structure in Jira. So what if we populate a Notion database with a bunch of Jira blocks? And that's what sync databases are. It's letting you populate these like Notion blocks with a bunch of external blocks and then manipulate them inside of Notion. So we started doing this, I want to say like about a year ago with our first like link preview Jira block release. But Notion can't build all the blocks out there. So this year we launched a new API, which is our link previews API. And this is an example of a company, Lucidchart, that built a Lucidchart block in Notion that lets you view and edit engineering diagrams inside of Notion. And the idea behind this is we now have more and more companies building blocks for their products inside of Notion. We're just growing the repository of blocks that you have. And with more and more blocks, you're now able to like use them to build better products. So as Lauren mentioned, it's all just blocks. It's all like, how do you take blocks, put them together to build products? And we're opening this up for anyone to build blocks now that work with their products. That's all we have for you. Quick plug, we're doing an AMA later tomorrow, Friday, at L'Empire here in Paris. If you're available, this is the QR code to sign up. And yeah, with that, I think we have time for a few questions. Yes?
We do.
Awesome.
Who have questions for Notion today? So there is one over here that we can start.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I'm a big fan of Notion. 100 billion blocks is a lot. Do you know what is the average carbon footprint of one block? And how do you work to make it lower?
I don't know, but I do know that we're trying to clean up some old blocks that are empty. I will get back to you on that.
We store all our data in AWS. So anything that AWS does to mitigate that is what we rely on.
Is there any other question for Notion? The product? Yeah, there's one over there, which is a bit tricky to get.
Yeah, so what kind of database do you use to store 100 billion blocks?
Yeah, we have a blog post that I would love if anyone's interested in the engineering of how to manage that much data. We use a Postgres database, relational database, which is sometimes shocking to people given how I just talked about this tree structure. But we found that to be really easy to index our blocks. So we actually, up until end of 2020, we hit a huge amount of growth with Notion, and we just had all blocks in one table. And things were getting really crusty in Notion when you opened it. So we sharded that into 32 different shards with different schemas, and we've actually just sharded it again into 96. But yeah, check out that blog post about how we sharded our database if you're curious.
Is there any other question on Notion, any feature request? No, cool. All right, so as I told, there is another Ask Me Anything, or they're around if you want to ask some other question. But give it up for Aman and Lauren for this amazing talk.